Hello, this is my Ascent B guide. So we're just going to go over everything to do with B on Ascent. And we're going to talk about these four agents first. So these four agents are all, I'm not going to talk about every agent, but these four agents are all kind of like the normal anchors you might see. Actually, you're going to see a lot less because of solo queue. Not many people play her in as much in ranked. But, you know, they definitely should. She's really strong. I only really see Astra when I play Astra, really, unfortunately. Sometimes I see the odd Astra. It'd be nice to have Astra more in my games, but I'm sure in like Radiant it's quite common. And I recommend people learn Astra. So the first thing first is that we're going to go over sort of Cypher and Killjoy. I'm not going to go too much into their actual setups, but what I will say is that they have their own ways of playing B. So Killjoy likes to. This is kind of going into like the basics more of Killjoy. So she likes to stop you from taking space by having sort of like a lethal threat on you. So stuff like nano swarms to control lane is very, very important for her, or like not really important, but very, very common for her. And can be like a good default. So like the bread and butter of Killjoy defending B. Just likes to put a turret here, but you can put it in other places. Sometimes I see this as well. I also see this. That's also useful. Sometimes you'll see the alarm bot control this space, but not always, because if you don't have a chamber, then you want to put it here. At least most of the time. So this is sort of like how Killjoy likes to defend it. She like to be quite close as well because she needs to be in a certain range for her alarm bot and turret. And she also likes to babysit her setup a bit because she likes to be lethal when you enter the setup. So she likes to support her utility and deal some damage with her gun at the same time. That's what she really likes to do. Cypher, on the other hand, is a bit different. He likes to sort of control the space with information. He doesn't really need to babysit his setup as he's not limited by range. And at the same time, he doesn't really play to get kills with it. Sometimes you can, or a lot of times you can, to get like wall bangs and kills through your Cypher cages. You like play in CT and you have a cage like this or something, like a trip like this or something. Actually, I don't think that was possible. But like a trip like this, they walk into the trip, you can spray them through the Cypher cage. There you go, right? That's sort of like sometimes how lethal you can be with Cypher. Sometimes you can sit back sight and have like a trip across boathouse to catch like a jet dashing in and then shoot it from the back. A boathouse through the wall. That is also an option you have on Cypher, but most of the time you want to be playing for like defensive information, essentially, is how you like to play. Use cam to kind of find information early. You don't really need it to be living a whole lot of the time. You just need to try and find some early information with cam. That's kind of its primary purpose, especially on attack, but on defense as well. It's exactly the same. You can also use it to defend certain areas as well by staying your cam at the start of the round or something. But I wouldn't recommend that a huge amount. You kind of want to be active still on Cypher. You don't want to be just like sit on cam AFK. Not always anyway. You can still have that as an option, but I wouldn't recommend doing it a whole lot. And then we're going to talk about Sova and Astra, who are a bit more. I would say like definitely Sova is a bit weird to be an anchor because he's not really suited to be an anchor that much. So I'm going to talk about him last. So Astra's anchors on other sites in other maps. So she's fairly easy to talk about. That she just simply puts 2 stars. She saves one for a Nebula and she saves one for either a Nova Pulse or a Gravity Well, depending on what you're doing in the other parts of the map. You might have the Gravity Well this for a teammate. Or one way this for a teammate. So you may not have like, you will have your stars for this if you do that, but you may not have your gravity well if you want to do this early for your teammate or stun early for your teammate. You might not have Nova Pulse. That's kind of like how to think about Astra. Helping your teammates, and then you kind of want to make sure you have these 2 stars defensively to help you. And then you can also have another star in backup. Maybe you want to smoke something like this. That sounds terrible. Or like, you know, maybe you want to pulse this eventually. When they come out, you're playing like this, or maybe you want to play like this, and then you can have this helping your teammates as they come out of the smokes in like CT and market from the enemy team. And then when they get to lane, you can stun them and start swinging them, and maybe get a kill, and then play really defensively at the back of site. Because this is a very important part of B. This part of B is like a really big defensive position, because it's really hard to take this without utility, and a lot of the times you'll just see people take 50-50s in this backside area, and it's very, very winnable for the defensive side, defensive player to win these fights. So That's very important to know that this is always an option for you. I think on the two sentinels here, they don't necessarily need to play this angle, but it is still really good for them because they can actually play like for information or play to get kills through the walls. And when they want to get kills like through this wall, they can play here or something. But otherwise, they might want to play like market or P, or maybe just like a bit closer like this to sort of like get kills off their utility. That can also be an option for them though to sit backside. But for Astra and Sova, it's very important that this area exists because it's a very, very good defensive position, and it's especially important for Sova. So that's it basically for Astra, right? It's about she's sort of like, she pilots like a controller, as she is a controller. So she pilots quite like that, where she can put up a smoke for herself. She can use disruptive utility for herself, like Brimmy's Molly is what I would say is disruptive to the attacking side. And her gravity well is exactly the same thing. To the attacking side, about coming out, like when they want to come out, they get a bit like delayed or even get killed during this time. So during the usage of this utility, or using this utility can net you a kill fairly easily sometimes. So that's one. We're going to talk about Sova. So Sova is a very interesting approach to anchoring on B. You pretty much can never anchor another site on another map. I think the closest he is Breeze A, where he can sort of, the way you play Breeze A is like you don't fully contest for the site. You sort of play around the attack Viper wall, with your recon dart, so then you can like threaten them when they come out that they have to be able to shoot this dart, otherwise they get killed. And obviously most of the time, at higher ranks they expect the dart. So you need to be like sneaky with how you use the dart, and it's all about the mind game sometimes. With like how you're going to place that dart and things like that. But then we're not talking about Breeze A, we're talking about Ascent B. So on Ascent B, it's actually fairly different than that. So it's very, very weird the way he fits into anchoring positions, because he anchors on A in a complete different A Breeze in a completely different way than he anchors on B Ascent. So some important parts to note is that, first of all, this defensive position is very, very strong for him, so he can always come back to this position and play like a normal anchor, like in terms of like defensive positioning. He can basically just revert to a 50-50, or even if he's got like a recon left, he can place the recon like here. Actually, I can actually use the recon thing, can't I? You can place like a recon really close, like at this door, and then you can start fighting people on lane and stuff like that from this position, and play for his life very nicely at the back. Without support is the important part. I will talk about support in a second as well. After this. So another thing that he can do, that is also important to his anchoring, is that this wall in B main, or B from like it shares with B main and B site, this sort of wall here, is incredibly weak. When you have like an Odin or have high penetration, it's really, really strong to just spray through this area when you have vision of them as well. So you can use your dart at the start of the round through the wall, or through the window. Either right on the window, which is pretty easy to shoot, but it's really, really likely to get a scan off because it lands really fast. Unless they're expecting it, then they probably won't shoot it. And then there's also ones where it like lands here, but that one's fairly easy to shoot, but it does get you a lot more info outside. I wouldn't do that if you're aiming to spray through it. And you can also just do one on the wall, on the roof here, which is quite hard to shoot because they have to go all the way up. But once again, if they're expecting it, it's pretty easy. Mainly because a lot of these arrows are known, it's fairly easy nowadays to shoot them, but it is still threatening to spray through this area with an Odin or an Ares or a Sheriff or a Guardian, because there is a chance that you just hit them in the head and they can't really stand in this area safely because they're getting hit by random bullets, getting chip damage. So it's really, really hard to play against a Sova that's doing this. And then he always has the option to go back to this defensive position, and then it really, really struggle. They really, really start struggling because they have to use utility to take this area, and then they have to use utility sometimes to take sort of like some of this mid site sometimes, some of these areas like this area, and then they have to take more, and they have to use more utility sometimes to get into the back site, and at which point they may even have run out and they have to just take 50-50 fights on you. So there's a reason why that this area is so strong, is because there's so many other areas they have to use util to take. So this is debatable, like B site. So sometimes they'll use utility to take sort of like this little area drop down, not always. And the same with this little spot here. And sometimes they'll like molly this. But otherwise they probably won't use that much util. Aside from like getting out into this area. Once you're in this area now, that they pretty much have the site unless someone is here. So sometimes you'll see that they'll have enough util to take this too. But they usually end up getting like 1-for-1 or something in this area because it's such a good defensive position. That's kind of it with Sova. You can also do other things too. So you can play defensively and move over here. I do this a lot on solo queue. So when they actually smoke this, so say they've got a Brim on the enemy team, they smoke this and this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait for them to, when I think they're coming out, maybe I get comms or I can actually hear their footsteps if I'm close enough. I'll arrow something like this, like on this back wall, and I can start spraying through the smoke. You can also do like close arrows. You can do one like on here as well. So if you think someone's fairly close, you can start spraying them. It will reveal someone like kind of in this corner as well. If you get it on like the furthest part of this wall, it will actually reveal people in there too in Switch. And that's pretty much it with Sova. That's pretty much how I play Sova on like the anchor, and that's how a lot of people play him, the anchor as well. I think Crashes was one of the people that I watched to sort of look at how to play anchor. Another good thing you can do as well from the back of Boathouse, if you have, sorry, remind me as well. You can also like arrow this too. So when they start to come out, they have to look directly up and behind themselves to shoot this arrow. And it also reveals people that are like in front of this very, very wall-bangable wall, this very, very flimsy wall. So then you can shoot them as they come out of this area into Switch. Very, very strong. You can also shoot them through this little wall here, like a certain angle, and it will end up. You can probably end up getting some kills for it with it as well. So very, very strong anchor. So if it is on B Ascent, and then we're going to talk about some of the supporting agents that you can pick for B Ascent. So first of all, you can probably argue that some of these are supporting agents. For instance, these two especially can be supporting agents of someone else that's anchoring this position. So if you have a Cypher and a Sova, for instance, or maybe a Killjoy and a Sova is actually more of the probably actually the same, like the combo you would actually think about when you think about, if I wanted to split these up properly, it'd probably be these two and these two. So if Killjoy is like anchoring B, sometimes you might have a Sova in CT that's been like watching mid. Maybe he droned mid early on because I don't know, maybe he wanted mid information, that been playing mid a lot or something. And then he comes back here and then he waits for your setup to go off, and then he's going to arrow like over here somewhere and try and play with the Killjoy from stairs, spray through the smoke as well. I like the setup. Maybe the Killjoy has like an nanoswarm setup, so when this setup goes off, he actually arrows over here instead or something. So plenty of ways to play with each other when you've got like someone like a reveal. And there's also KO as well, but KO is generally played on A, so you might not have him supporting you on B a huge amount. But it is still possible, like he can throw his knife when they come out, and it can delay them further. He can also throw his molly. There's plenty of options. He can also right click through smoke or left click through smoke and swing with you. If you're playing like on site here or something, you flashes this, you both swing from this angle, and then you probably get kills of people coming out onto site through this little smoke. And then the other options you have are like Astra and Cypher, who have a very, very unique set when it comes to dealing with KO. So they can do something a bit like, they can like swap sites. So what they can do is you can have a Cypher setup on B, let's do a random Cypher setup. Really won't actually see this in the game. There you go. And then Cypher will go play A, and then Astra will play B with the Cypher setup, and then Astra will have her stars ready on A to defend the Cypher. So whenever the KO decides that he wants to silence one of them, it's only the trips that go down on A. But if he wants to silence B and go B, then it's only the stars that go down that are on A. So the trips are still up, and the Cypher can still defend the Astra with cages and with trips. So bear in mind as well that it is actually technically better to go for the Astra side because the trips are a bit easier to deal with than the stars are. And also Astra can place more stars here to help her, but Cypher can't place more things to help Astra. So it is definitely stronger to go for the Astra side. As like if you're talking about like playing as the KO, attacking like one of the sites. But that's just a side note really. And then there's stuff like Fade. Fade is a really strong haunt that you can do up here. That when they come out, you start shooting them. It's very similar to the way Sever would play it. And there's plenty more that I'm going to miss and that you guys know about. Stuff like even Phoenix can flash through smokes. Things like that, right? Sage can throw slows. Well, that's really cool on this. I didn't realize how cool that looked. So Sage can throw slows in here, that sort of stuff. And then we're going to talk about attack. So the important people on attack are going to be basically every controller that is played on this map. So Omen, Astra, and Brim are the ones that you most commonly see. You probably will barely see Viper, and you definitely won't see Harbor, at least a massive amount. I think Harbor's not bad though on this map, but I just don't see him enough to really give my full opinion on him on this map. But I think he's not bad from what I've seen so far. And then you probably see Sova is probably very important. KO is definitely important to take this map, or to probably take this site. Looking for Fade. Fade is decent on this map to take, and so is Chamber, and to try and take these sites. So obviously these are fairly self-explanatory. They're going to want to try and smoke the normal angles, like this. You can also have stuff like Omen and Astra. They have also a thing that Brim can't do, which is they want to try and take like the first fight. They can help to take this first fight by like Nova Pulsing or using Paranoia. That is options that they have that Brim doesn't have access to. Brim instead has access to stimming them here, so you can go especially fast. I suppose technically you can orbital strike this, but I'm not sure how good that would be. I don't think it would be very good at all. KO has lineups to silence people on site and find information. You can also use the cooldown sort of way of taking space. I just realised I didn't press F11 to like zoom in, so it doesn't really matter to be honest. So you can use sort of the cooldown method of taking space is what I call it. I don't think it's a very good way to say it, but maybe there's a better name for it. Where you sort of like use your cooldowns to take space. So KO is going to put like one close here, and then you're going to have an Omen smoke to take this area. And then you can all take this B main control, and then when they all come off cooldown again, then you'll throw another knife on the next sort of point to take. And then you'll get the smoke, so they've taken this, and then you'll probably end up going site on this particular site. Definitely works better on like AI spots, but you can still do that on here. It is very possible. But it works better on A even as well than B, because B, I think you don't really want to be standing in B main a massive amount of time, especially if they know you're there. So if you make too much noise in here, then they may just start trying to spam you if they have like a server on site or something, or using util. In some ways it's quite good though, because they may end up like using like mollies to defend against you. If they think you're there, and they may use them too early, and then you can go off the knife again. So that's pretty good. And there's also Fade and Sova, which have their own sort of lineups to sort of try and take site and get reveals on site, get information if you want to rotate. Maybe there's too many people here and you want to go back and try to control the map a bit. Maybe you get a pick and you want to try and reset and spread them out a bit. Maybe that's something you want to do. So he's got arrows up here, he's got arrows here. Fade as a haunt in here, Fade as a haunt over here. And yeah, that's basically it. Chamber also can just play like Chamber, just puts rendezvous down and randomly peeks a smoke or something, or does Chamber things. You know, Chamber's just stupid. Sage, actually, I just forgot. Sage also has options. She can also wall this technically. You see this quite a bit actually. I saw it in comp as well. Like not comp. Yeah, competitive. I saw it in like actual like VCT matches. It might be in game changers. I'm not sure if I saw it in champs. I can't remember. I'm not sure how much Sage was played on Ascent in champs. It was long ago, but game changes is more fresh in my memory, and I remember Sage being played on Ascent and this wall being in use. So that's also a good option. Very strong, can catch people off guard, especially if you don't do it every round. So if you'd wait for like the perfect rounds where this would have good impact, obviously, then it would pretty good, you know, by definition, considering the scenario I set up for it. Okay, that's pretty much the end of the video. Hopefully you learned something about B Ascent. I'm not exactly sure how much these videos help or not, and they're very long form. I try my best to speak fast as possible, try and get through this, because otherwise we're going to be here for half an hour, 40 minutes, an hour. And I know I speak fast anyway, so I mean, maybe I'm just speaking like gibberish to you. So hopefully it doesn't sound awful, and you learned something about Ascent on B, about who can anchor, and about sort of like how they anchor, and why it actually works. So bear in mind that the best part about anchoring B is this position. So being able to retreat to this position from pretty much anywhere is important, or retreating to CT to then retake is also a really good option. So just bear in mind those are like your two options when doing this. So when you're thinking about maybe another agent you want to use to anchor, maybe you're like a KO main and you want to try anchoring B, then bear in mind that these are like important things to keep in mind when like thinking about the fundamentals of anchoring B. Like how good is the map geometry here for me to anchor this position, and then like maybe then you got to start using like KO stuff to like think about how do I anchor this. So when they get to this point, you can start flashing. Maybe you use 0 point on this wall to defend, or maybe you use it fairly early, so when they actually try and want to go out, then they're all silenced. Or you can use fragment. You have like fragment lineup from backside, or maybe you just fragment lineup from here and then retreat. Like you're going to learn these things if you want to do those things. This is what it's kind of for, trying to make sure that you can sort of think about the game critically yourself and think about the fundamentals of the game yourself. And I'm just using examples of actual agents that actually do these things. And obviously it's on you to think about these things critically. I'm not trying to like cheat code like you would see other guides. I'm trying to explain things fundamentally as possible. Whether I executed that properly, I don't know yet. 100%. I just try it and do it and we'll see. So yeah, thanks for watching. And I will see you in my next one. If you enjoyed the content, then please like, and if you want to see more, then subscribe. Thank you.